The Art of F&I, Conversations from the Box. Written and read by Lloyd W. Trushel. Copyright 2020. All rights reserved. Warning: if you're reading this book with the expectation of a handbook, a technical guide, or maybe 10 actionable tips to raise your PVR, this may not be the book for you. Instead, this is a journey into the minds of our customers and the behaviors that are happening inside of our dealerships. It's less about learning closes and more about developing process. Instead of word tracks, we'll talk about critical thinking and true intent.
I write this not for the many, but for you. Each of us is enough of an audience for each other. Epicurus.
Introduction. There are many books on how to succeed in F&I. Experts are everywhere trying to give you advice on how to be successful. You see magazines, blogs, podcasts, and even TV shows telling you how to maximize your profits and overcome any objection. Yet, something is still missing. Customer satisfaction is incredibly low. People dislike the buying process. Nearly 6 out of every 10 customers skip buying a vehicle service contract from their selling dealer, while third-party competition is thriving on selling to the same customers. With the advent of DealerTrack and RouteOne, coupled with the evolution of the desk submitting deals before F&I involvement even begins, people should be delighted with the overall transaction times. But they're not. Another problem that we face is that most F&I training today follows an old model of trying to simply overcome objections. The focus on objections made companies like Pat Ryan and Jim Moran a solution for dealers wanting to create their own F&I departments in the 1970s. And it worked. They created an industry, but the world keeps moving. Today, endlessly debating with customers by overcoming every objection is a problem. We must be, as Bruce Lee said, like water, and adapt to each customer individually. For instance, today, a menu presentation with every product bundled into the complete or the platinum column may be the best way to present your payment, or it may not be. Do you know what sales process is most effective in your store? Or are you doing what your trainer tells you works best? More importantly, can they bring data? Can they demonstrate effective results in your store? If not, why are they giving you advice? The truth is, different methods and different behaviors work differently in different cultures. In other words, one size does not fit all. Yet, we engage in a one-size-fits-all 300% rule environment that has many F&I managers telling the customer things like, "These are mandatory disclosures," to sell products, like it's mandatory, like it's enforced by law or something. Overall, this doesn't work very well, and your customers agree with me. I propose there is a better way. To be clear, my goal is not to help you sell more products and make more gross. It is about engaging in behaviors that organically create more product sales and more gross. Because your customer wants to be protected. Everyone does. They just don't like the way the coverage is being offered. Lastly, the framework and many of the concepts inside this book are going to reappear because the ideas interweave with each other. You may wish to adopt some of the principles from this book into your everyday life. Each little piece will not only help you in the box, but it will also help you with every other relationship that you hope to find success in. The stories are about F&I, but the principles are about life. I sincerely hope you enjoy our time together. Be well. Lloyd Trushel, Seattle, Washington, May 2020. P.S. This material was written and compiled over a few days, but it encompasses the observations, experiences, and ponderings of nearly 30 years in the car business, mostly focused on F&I development. I welcome your feedback and hope for your dialogue, so please reach out.
The moment there is a suspicion about a person's motives, everything he does becomes tainted. Gandhi.
Chapter 1. Behaviors. Saturday, 2:38 p.m. 3 deliveries so far, 2 working. Customer number 1 was borrowing 147% of book, and she said, "No, I think I'll pass," on gap coverage because $14 is too much right now. But she had $100 worth of worthless, scratched-off lotto tickets in her trade. Customer number 2 said, "If it breaks, I'll just pay for it." But right now he has 0 money down and is trading a vehicle with 0 maintenance records. Customer number 3 cut me off and said, "Nope." No reason given. Then pushed the menu back at me. If you've spent any time in a dealership, you've met these same customers. Now, most of us have been in a class where at some point the trainer begins carrying on about the cost versus value equation and how, when value exceeds cost even by a penny, the customer always buys. But that's not true. And if it were true, what happens when the customer never allows you to get that far? What about the guy that was surfing on his phone the whole time that you were trying to tell him all cars eventually break down and you should buy the coverage, but he tuned you out? Did his deal get in your head a little bit? Maybe you missed a good deal while he was in your office. Were you thinking, there goes my PVR, there goes my bonus? What is your strategy for dealing with customers that are not engaged, that are not interested in listening to your presentations? Do you have one? Many finance managers operate in the mode of saying, "These are mandatory disclosures," or "It's my job." But really, does the customer care about your obligation to do sales presentations? No. Most don't care. And now you begin to feel the pressure to sell something. So you begin thinking about your PVR, your penetration, your profit, your pay plan, or maybe just keeping your job. But this thinking is focused in the wrong direction. The thinking is focused on you, not them, and they can feel it. So they begin making judgments about you and your motives. Some will decide that you're just doing your job. Others will decide that you're being pushy or even rude. They might ask, "Do I have to decide right now?" You'll say no, but then continue to explain why the best time is now, but it's often too late. You've already missed the sale. Communicating with the customer and making a sale is completely within reach, but we often miss the signals. In the beginning of the transaction, there wasn't a stoplight. It was yellow, but because we've been conditioned to hurry up, we pushed for the sale. In short, we sped up when we should have slowed down. This might be the easiest concept in the world to understand. Everybody gets it, but it's also incredibly hard to do anything about it. Basically, it's hard to focus on your customers in a meaningful way when you're always under the pressure to perform. You are always reminded about your PVR, your penetration, your profit by your peers, the sales management, your general manager, the warranty rep, etc. And even on the best month, you're going back to 0 soon. Given this situation and those beliefs, we must wonder if it's possible to create quick and easy transactions and still even make a profit. Some observations. As of this writing, I am approaching 30 years in the automotive business. I began training F&I managers in 1995, and during that period of time, I've never found the perfect close. I've never found anyone that can inspire the customer to purchase products 100% of the time. That said, I'm going to share with you what I have learned about the most successful finance managers that I personally worked with and learned from over the years. Their behaviors were not able to persuade 100% of their customers either, but they consistently had higher numbers than their peers. Just like a professional athlete, they didn't win every game throughout their career, but they still outperformed everyone else. They added value to everything they did by exuding professionalism. They created a culture of team with their coworkers. In some cases, they established harmony where it did not previously exist before. I remember working with a group of 14 F&I managers back in 2002. 2 of the 14 within the group employed these traits. They had the most consistent numbers in the group. They had the highest VSC penetration in the group too. 60 to 65% on average, and arguably one of the hardest brands to sell VSCs in, Honda. These guys never fussed about anything. They just came to work and they solved problems. Their GM loved them. So did the rest of the dealership, even the accounting department. I remember training them on menu presentations and word tracks. In large part, they just pacified me. Yes, they were model students and they would role play on word tracks, but they didn't actually use word tracks. They didn't have to. Their behaviors leading up to the customer's decision solicited yes early in the transaction. They didn't need to practice overcoming objections because there weren't that many. If the customer said no, then no problem. Which seems counterintuitive, I'm sure, but many said yes early and often, and those that were on the fence would usually buy with just a little bit more data. Yes, data, not scare tactics or hard closes. Their approach was more like speaking with a good doctor or a good lawyer, sharing valuable information and opinions with the goal of allowing the patient or the client to make an informed, intelligent decision. No extra push was needed, just clear, intelligent communication. The push is something that we create within ourselves out of our need to chase our goals. This is great in many areas of life, but too much can cause challenges in the box. If your customer begins to feel the push, they will begin pushing too. And this is where we often lose them. This is where we hear customers say, "Nope. Can I think about it? Do I have to decide today?" Therefore, if we want to communicate with them, we must get our goals aligned before we interact with our customers. We must know what our agenda is. We must identify what it is that we are actually pushing for. Basically, are we trying to help the customer, or are we just trying to help ourselves? In Latin, they have a phrase, Cui Bono, which translates in English as who benefits. So be clear and ask yourself, Cui Bono, who benefits if the customer buys your product? If the customer feels like a victim because they don't understand something or they feel like you're trying to scare them, they'll pull away. If, instead, your conversation is about creating the best ownership experience, then some people that wouldn't normally listen to you will decide to tune in. Basically, our intent is super important here because people feel it. So, we have to get our intent right before we engage with them. If you're trying to do something to them, like sell them product X, it will feel pushy. But if your goal is for them to have a great experience, it will feel completely different. Creating this difference is what will separate you from being just another salesperson. Methodology. How do you take a product that has been in decline since the early 1990s and turn it around during a recession? Well, first, you collect data on your actual customers, and then you customize your behaviors around them. In 2009, Subaru tried this approach by marketing primarily to educators, healthcare workers, technology professionals, outdoorsy types, and single female heads of household. In their wisdom, no one else bought Subaru cars, so no one else really mattered. They hired Martina Navratilova, a lesbian former tennis pro, as their spokesperson. As a result, some people threatened to boycott the brand, but Subaru didn't buckle under the pressure. Subaru knew the group boycotting them weren't really their demographic anyway. Additionally, Subaru's sales were going up while the rest of the car business was falling apart. Remember, this was in 2009. 1,550 franchise dealers went out of business that year, followed by another 760 in 2010. Yet Subaru managed to begin a climb that still hasn't stopped. Like Subaru, you must niche and focus narrowly until you have a process that communicates the perfect message. This became evident to me in 2009 while the car business was shifting from the recession. Like Subaru, I began to study consumer behavior habits and focused communication myself. I found connections in dealership behavior that directly affected PVR and penetration rates. I learned how we could modify our behavior to not only be more profitable, but also the path to enjoying our work a lot more. I spent a lot of time studying how the brain works, specifically trying to understand how people make decisions. In the process, I discovered a couple basic laws about F&I. F&I law number 1. Trust is the most valuable currency in the world. Trust is universal. Regardless of what country you're in or what language you speak, it is more valuable than money. Trust is quite simply a gateway. Your customer will decide whether or not you can be trusted before listening to your menu presentation or considering any data that supports them buying a product from you. In other words, no trust equals no sale. F&I law number 2. It is dysfunctional not to want the most warranty available on anything. No matter what product you buy, you will want guarantees. Also, you will want the longest guarantee available. Now, you may not be willing to buy any more coverage, but you will always want the most coverage available, and the more, the better. Because basically, we all want guarantees. Naturally competitive people. Could the need to win play into a decision to skip the VSC or the gap? Is it possible that at least some of your customers will feel this way when you begin your presentation? Absolutely. Maybe those customers are part of the group that always tries to maximize or stretch every cent out of every transaction. The desire to do so isn't always as rational as cost versus value. Sometimes it's just an emotional response. Emotionally, some people feel the need to win in exchanges and transactions. Now, would it surprise you if I said that there is no such thing as a group that always does that? Would it surprise you if I told you that the truth is, independently, people respond to all purchases differently, and there's rarely a code of disciplined behavior that all people keep? As author Yuval Noah Harari explains in his book, Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, we decide and then we justify our actions. Basically, we make gut decisions and then tell ourselves a story that justifies that decision. An example of this would be a customer that has decided that all salespeople are cheats and liars. This is only a gut decision, but it will be justified by that one time something happened. Often, the decision is not based on solid data. In the box, this can result in your customer declining your products before the presentation even begins. This is a tough place to start, yet it happens all the time. By understanding some basic consumer behaviors and maximizing your best behaviors, we can radically reduce the amount of resistance that we receive right from the beginning. If your customer lacks trust, need, or belief, they will never consider the cost versus value equation. On the other hand, if we establish trust, people will listen and communicate openly about their needs and beliefs. Then concerns like cost, payments, or anything else that needs to be addressed before they can agree to buy your products can occur. The cost versus value myth. For years, I've heard sales trainers say, when value exceeds cost, the customer will always buy. But it's not exactly true. Let's discuss what cost and value actually mean. Costs are relatively fixed, and we have some control over them. Inventory, advertising, reconditioning, compensation, interest rates, insurance products, etc. are all pretty similar across the car business. It's rare that one dealership has a unique advantage in these areas. Value, on the other hand, is about belief. It's an opinion. Value does not care about cost. Value is determined by how someone feels in the moment. Eventually, you're going to have to answer the customer's question when they ask, how much is the VSC? How much is the gap? And in that moment, the customer is going to begin to make judgments. They will begin making assumptions and associations based on your pricing and the way that you deliver that information. The value of your products are going to be determined by the customer's opinion. Value can be heavily influenced by data and time, but value is still perceived. As a result, value can sometimes just be an illusion. Tonight, you can go outside and hold a penny up in front of the moon, and when you look at it, you'll see that Abraham Lincoln's head is almost as big as the moon. But of course, it's not. It's an illusion created by distance. If the penny were farther away than your arm's length, the illusion would disappear. Time influences value the same way. If we lengthen the amount of time before an F&I product is needed, its perceived value lessens. If we shorten the time, the perceived value increases. It's that simple. Test it. Imagine yourself at the airport rushing to catch a red-eye flight. You're super hungry, so you grab a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from the gift store. The cashier asks you for $6.49, and you think, that's kind of pricey for a PB&J sandwich. Heck, you could buy a loaf of bread, peanut butter, and jelly for almost the same cost at a grocery store. But with no time left to find other options, the value of the sandwich grows. You buy it now or risk being hungry for the next 6 hours. And suddenly, it's worth it.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Theodore Roosevelt.
The impossible F customer. In 1995, I learned about the F customer in an F&I class that I attended, and they are still a challenge today. I was taught that approximately 10% of customers are laydowns, 80% must be closed, and the other 10% remaining, well, they were F customers. I commonly heard statements like, these customers do not budge. They never buy anything from us. They are impossible. We've all heard the phrase, misery loves company. And some people, well, they just want to fight when they come to buy their cars. When we've had enough of anything, we may feel the desire to fight back, which kind of makes sense whenever it's directed at the right target. But sometimes the desire to fight becomes the desire to fight about everything or with anyone. This can happen when the confrontation is not in our own best interest, like skipping the vehicle service contract or gap coverage when it's needed. I think this is some of what drives F customers, a deep frustration with something that may or may not be related to your transaction. Regardless, if somebody's feeling defensive, they're more likely to tune out or just say no to your presentation. I believe the F in F customer should actually stand for fear. They could easily be afraid of you, or salespeople in general. They could be uncomfortable because they bought elsewhere in the past and it wasn't a pleasant experience, or they left feeling ripped off by someone that was being really nice at the time. Of course, they could just be in fear of a higher payment when they should really be afraid of a major repair. So, they make the choice, fight or flight. Flight is easy to recognize. They'll say something like, can I think about it, or do I have to decide today? Often, stalling the decision isn't about considering their options, it's just a verbal form of running away. Fighting looks different. It looks like, nah, I never buy any of that stuff, don't waste your time. They push the menu back at you, stuff like that. I sometimes hear F&I managers explaining to me how dumb their customers are for skipping the VSC or gap. This could be true, but it's more likely that a good portion of those dumb customers are actually in fight mode, and the finance manager is misinterpreting their actions. In her landmark book, Ego and the Mechanisms of Self-Defense, Anne Freud coins the phrase psychological self-defense. She explains that our minds will play tricks on itself or even lie to itself if needed for self-preservation. A common example is denial, but then she unpacks 47 more examples of emotions that people adopt to protect themselves. When the mind cannot deal with something, it will often rearrange or edit the truth, at least until it's safe to deal with the situation. Similar behaviors happen in the box. We've all had a customer that's $5,000 upside down refusing gap. Why? Again, it's fear, and they reflexively say no. Their fear of being taken advantage of is greater than their fear of skipping gap coverage. Now, getting through this is not impossible, but it will take courage and patience on your part. There are only 2 rules to communicating with F customers. Rule number 1, you must share some undeniable information with your customer in a very gentle way. Now, what kind of undeniable information, you ask? Well, first of all, the undeniable fact that they actually want to be covered. They want safety, they want to be protected, or otherwise removed from risk. In short, the customer actually wants the vehicle service contract coverage. They actually want the benefit that GAP gives. Rule number 2, you need to demonstrate that you actually care about them and their outcome. Going back to F&I law number 2, it's dysfunctional not to want the most warranty available on anything. No matter what product you buy, you will always want a guarantee. You will always want the longest guarantee also. Now, you may not be willing to buy more coverage, but that doesn't mean that you don't want it. And your customer wants it too. They want the most coverage available, the more the better. So what's wrong with reminding the customer that we all want guarantees? And that they should at least review the product and then make an informed decision? Nothing, as long as you're obeying rule number 2, being genuinely concerned about your customer's future. This allows you to authentically discuss the value of the VSC gap or other products without triggering their fight or flight response. Test it. If possible, give an example of a time that you volunteered or forfeited your warranty coverage on anything. You probably can't think of one, because it would be dysfunctional or irrational to decline a product guarantee. In short, we know that people want guarantees. We know that more warranty is desired as opposed to less. Now, people may not want to pay for it, but they do want the guaranteed feeling. We all do. On every product we buy every time. Not wanting the longest guarantee on any product would be dysfunctional. It would be irresponsible, right? Bad F&I training. Most of today's F&I training was designed in the 1980s and 1990s. Boom years, robust financial growth, and times were good. But today things are very different. The culture of America is a lot different than it was in the 1990s. Times have changed. Accordingly, the F&I training from the 80s and 90s has become ineffective and obsolete in many ways. Getting 5 no's from your customer is a problem. In fact, trying to overcome objections is a problem. We need to behave in a manner that does not create objections in the first place. Almost every time someone outside the auto industry asks me what I do, I receive a response that includes a horror story about buying or not buying a car. Experiences like an acquaintance who bought a Mazda and her story about 3 different managers taking TOs on her to try and close her on a vehicle service contract. They failed, but their customer is still telling people of how she loves the car, but not the dealership, and that she'll never buy from them again. Because of bad F&I training, F&I departments are on the chopping block in some stores. I see examples all over YouTube demonstrating old-school training methods. One video, Alexis Aminta F&I presentation, has nearly 18,000 views. I watched this video, and it's exactly the same type of training that I received in the early 1990s. She graduated in 2016 from F&I school and was out of the car business a couple months later. I believe this is what is wrong with many F&I departments. It's unrealistic. No one's going to sit through 20 minutes of blah, 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 buy it or bad things are going to happen. And if they do sit through it, it's because they really want the car. But they are just waiting to say no again. We live in a world of 60-second transactions, and this antiquated sales method is dead. In the process of dying, it's also killing our CSI and our profits. I believe it's time for every dealer to abandon the model and embrace the inevitable change. I'm going to emphasize that there are some amazing trainers out there that grab your attention and they get results. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the trainer that's only reading word tracks out of a book and role-playing scenarios that don't model real-life transactions. Word tracks won't save you. Customers give us objections all the time, and we are trained to say the same responses when we hear those objections. This is the nature of word tracks. It's basically just a pattern of conversation that the customer, although unaware, is supposed to follow. Entertain for a moment that you're trying to explain why somebody needs gap insurance. Mr. Customer, blah, 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 blah. We do it so many times that we develop a pattern. Let's say that you want to describe a problem. You're going to have a very specific pattern of unpacking that idea for the customer. Similar to a martial artist using a physical pattern to slip or block an attack from their opponent, we use a verbal pattern to describe how someone can benefit from gap coverage. Understanding that we're using a pattern, the question then becomes, can we measure or modify the effectiveness of our communication patterns? If we're able to broaden the verbal patterns that we operate within, then we can communicate more effectively with other people. Learning more patterns allows you to be more effective in the conversation. It's like having 2 or 3 word tracks for a gap instead of 1. You could deploy the word track that you hope will be most effective. These verbal patterns can be effective until you meet someone that recognizes the pattern for what it is, a manipulation. Once they see through it, you're in trouble. Now, a black belt in martial arts is someone that can see and run a lot of different patterns. They're not stuck with 2 or 3. They understand the mechanics and they're able to adapt in the moment. So a black belt in F&I doesn't need to follow a script. They possess the ability to go anywhere in the conversation with their customer. They are able to openly discuss products and benefits without fear of where the conversation goes. This comes from having 2 very important characteristics. First is developing a deep understanding of how your products work, how claims are handled, how the product helps create the best ownership experience for your customer. In short, professional competency. The second is having good intent. If our intent is about doing something to the customer rather than doing something for the customer, then we cannot fully be open in our conversations. This comes from hiding the truth or facts from people. If our intentions have a spirit of nobility, then we can open up more fully with the person across from us. We can communicate better and shorten the transaction time. In short, the second component is just having good character. Our goal from the very first moment with our customer is to make sure that they understand who we are. In order to do that, we have to ask ourselves, who am I? Do I always operate with integrity and honesty? That's number 1. Number 2, do I know how to perform my job at the highest professional level? Because if I'm only there for the money, it's likely I'm not going to put in the work to create the best ownership experience for my customer. Once they discover you're only there for yourself, the transaction, it's going to slow down. The profit is going to shrink while you try to negotiate through their reluctance. This is where word tracks fall apart. Like Bruce Lee said, real combat is spontaneous, not rehearsed. Meet the sales prevention manager. I can't count how many times I've heard people say, I keep pushing until I get 5 no's. Or sometimes it's, I don't hear the word no. They brag about hammering people and ripping heads off when they close a big deal, as if the customer didn't see any value in the products offered and it was only their amazing ability as a closer. Just pounding people with word tracks is a lack of intelligent focus on the overall F&I process. Too often, the only emphasis is on immediate profit, and zero thought is given to the future relationship between the customer and the dealership. For some F&I managers, they'll just find another job if they stop making money and their chargebacks become too high. New F&I managers have a different problem. They receive questionable to sometimes terrible training. Often, the new F&I manager finds themselves in the box without the ability to have a real-world conversation about the transaction or the products themselves. He or she is only focused on one thing, overcoming objections, which ironically creates more objections. But in fairness to everyone I've just mentioned, if they're not making enough profit, they're going to get fired, so they feel like they really don't have any choice. As a result, thousands of times a day, this type of transaction occurs in dealerships all across the country. Customer says no. The first F&I attempt is the transition. It's hard to justify the cost if you can't see the value. May I ask you a couple questions? Just trying to get permission to stay in the game. The second attempt. You told me. What they're doing is they're using the interview against the customer. Third attempt, scare tactic. Imagine that something happens. How are you going to pay the bill? The fourth attempt, the surprise. What if I can include all the benefits of the package and keep your payment the same by stretching your loan out for another year? The fifth attempt, the discount. Loss of profit and credibility. This is not a solution. In fact, these techniques are what people are actually complaining about the most. Many F&I providers know that it's happening, and they overlook it because they don't actually have a quality training solution. Yes, they have many years of experience, but their experience and training is equally as old. Unfortunately, no one talks about it, and many dealers and general managers are completely unaware.
Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Stephen Hawking.
Low commitment to training? In a recent poll of F&I managers, 61% felt that their trainer was, quote, completely out of touch and hadn't spun a deal in years, if ever. Another 23% received zero F&I training at all. In short, 84% of those surveyed felt like they were not getting the training support that they needed. Why does this happen? Well, most dealers and GMs are simply too busy to assist. They are so focused on advertising, hitting units, managing cost, keeping or finding employees, that F&I development is something that they plan on doing later. So they look for a plug-and-play person that can be up and running quickly. The obvious problem is that the person that they found is usually unemployed already, sometimes for good reason. Of course, this should raise questions like, what happened at the last store that caused them to be unemployed in the first place? This perpetual rotation of finding a Band-Aid for F&I may work a little bit longer, but the F&I process is often the deciding factor on whether many customers even return to the dealership. So dealers should take note. As of 2019, the average new car dealer is spending $640 per unit on advertising, but less than $10 a unit on F&I training. They often expect the insurance company or their local agent to provide training, but sometimes what they get isn't in alignment with their goals. Instead, it's just another Band-Aid. Modern dealerships are searching for a solution to shrinking profits, unfavorable reviews, and are desperately in need of providing quicker transaction times once the customer agrees to buy. They recognize the need for better process, and they understand the hard economic consequences of what happens when they fail to deliver a quality experience to their customers. This is just another reminder that endlessly attempting word tracks hoping to overcome objections does not create lifetime customers. If we are truly building a legacy, we must learn to adopt the behaviors that help customers engage in the process of selecting products with us. High-level problem solving. Life is just a series of events. Many of these events are problems, but sometimes we can pick our problems. A small problem like finding an extra $30 over the next 30 days is pretty manageable for most people. A bigger problem like having to pay thousands of dollars to fix your car or pay off a loan this afternoon are much less manageable. The truth is, the solution to one problem is typically the beginning of the next. Like a customer that skips the VSC and then acquires $2,200 in credit card debt at 18% just to pay for a repair that they were overcharged by $400 on. This is a pretty bad day for them, and it could have been easily handled for $30 a month, but they didn't pick the $30 a month problem. Occasionally, we can pick our problems. In fact, I would argue that that is our job, to help our customers pick better problems. An extra $50 a month might be a strain on the budget for some of your customers, but major repairs, gaps in insurance settlements, and excessive depreciation from loss of appearance are much worse. Just like in life, we have choices. I can pick the problem of eating healthy, less tasty foods today, or experience the problem of poor health tomorrow. I can pick the problem of finding time to exercise today, or have the problem of my body failing tomorrow. I can pick the problem of reading books to stimulate and educate my mind today, or I can suffer the lack of knowledge and understanding tomorrow. For our customers, they can pick the problem of $35 a month now for a VSC, or have the $1,800 emergency later when they must repair the most important tool that they own. They can pick the problem of $14 a month for GAP, or risk having to pay $3,000 to pay off their car before they can replace it. The goal here is to solve your customers' problems before they even occur. Being good at problem solving leads directly to success, not just in the box, but in most endeavors throughout all of our lives. Test it. Take a professional fighter, for instance. He or she has a game plan when the fight begins, but if the other fighter is getting the best of them, then they have to adapt or else they're going to lose. This is problem solving on a very high level. They either make adjustments and solve problems or they lose. Period. The paradox is that the stress goes up fast when it's tied directly to your paycheck. The same thing happens in the box. You've got seconds to figure out how to solve problems or your paycheck is going to be affected. And just like a fighter, we must train. In our case, training is learning how our products help protect customers. Once you've mastered that, you could go anywhere in the conversation that the customer takes you. You can make the necessary adjustments and help them choose from the protection packages that solve their problems. Confessions of an F&I Trainer. I couldn't do it anymore. The lie. The status quo. Like a teacher telling the happy story of Christopher Columbus to elementary kids while knowing that the truth is very different. There I was sitting in the training room with the new F&I manager. We were about to go through the motions again. Presentation, handle objections, print. That is it. That is all he needs to know right now. The idea is simple. Make someone new to the F&I department profitable for the store immediately. At least this guy had a foundation as a BDC guy in a prior dealership, and he knew his way around the DMS. He and I had already completed one day working on the basics and laws. On day 2, we were 3 hours into the menu presentation session. We broke for lunch to grab some tacos in the break room, and then it began. A conversation. Philosophy, economics, and purpose with the newbie F&I guy. As we go, I recognize he's wicked smart, and he has some pretty great observations on life as well. I learned a bit. Later on in class, we're role-playing word tracks. You know, all the all cars break, overall cost of one repair, 99.9% style stuff. He looks me dead in the eye and seriously asks, "Does any of this shit actually work on people?" My ego speaks. "Absolutely," I announce without hesitation. We continue training. I can feel mild cynicism, but we carry on. His mind opens a little bit to the training. We spend 3 more days practicing presentations and overcoming objections. I leave, and soon his numbers are in the top percentage of my group. Success, right? Not really. I was still bothered by the question weeks later. I told my wife about this, and she told me something profound. Something my ego couldn't handle. I wasn't practicing what I preach, and I didn't even know I was doing it. She told me, "You didn't use word tracks with your customers, and most of your transactions were just conversations with people." I'm floored. I can't believe it. But then it occurred to me, the difference between a close and an explanation can be subtle. I had ways of unpacking information and explaining things that didn't end with, "Would you like your payment to begin in 30 or 45 days? I didn't overcome objections. I just helped people understand their decisions better. I was communicating gently, and people were moving forward with me, but I was teaching something entirely different. Today, I clearly understand that it wasn't my closes that generated higher profits. It was my care.
It's hard to get someone to do the right thing when their paycheck depends on them doing the wrong thing. Upton Sinclair.
Chapter 2. Communication. Tuesday morning, 11:11 a.m. She's here to cancel. "Are you who I see to cancel my gap?" she asked me. I said, "I'll be happy to help you," and I pulled up her deal. It's only been 3 days, and she's refinanced with her credit union, and she bought their gap. She tells me that they were a half point lower. and that this will save her $11 a month. Then a story about how every little bit counts. I think to ask her, does their gap cover 150% of book and her deductible up to $1,000? But she doesn't know what it covers. And worse, she's become a little embarrassed by not knowing what she's actually bought. This one question causes her mood to change, and suddenly she's in a hurry to leave. Now, I know why this situation is falling apart. Her feelings got a little bit hurt by the embarrassment of not knowing if she made the right decision. For a second, she felt a small level of shame in her gut about trusting the credit union. But then, to feel better, she internally told herself the warm fuzzy story that it's okay, and how the credit union are the good guys and I'm the bad guy. Then she left, not knowing if she has 120% or 150% gap coverage, and most likely the new responsibility of paying a $500 deductible if she has a claim. In my world, I asked her a legitimate question about specific coverage on a legal contract. In her world, she felt offended. She framed me as a jerk. Perception is reality, I guess. Still, I suspect I could have possibly saved the products, the financing, and the CSI had I connected with her differently. The trust alarm. He screamed, "Let's get out of here now." Quickly, all the firefighters followed the chief outside. Moments later, the floor collapsed. They all would have died had they stayed inside. Afterwards, a reporter asked the chief how he knew to run. "I didn't even know I said anything," the chief responded. "It was all subconscious." Sometimes this is what people refer to as a sixth sense, also known as knowledge that you did not receive from sight, smell, touch, sound, or taste. This is information that comes from somewhere else. We regularly refer to this as a gut feeling. So, where does the gut feeling come from? In the chief's case, it came by little things like his ears burning from the abnormal amount of heat and from the fire being too quiet. In the moment, he was not consciously aware of his ears burning or the odd quietness, but he could recall these details after the fact. His crew thought they were trying to put out a small kitchen fire, but their water didn't seem to have the usual effect. Turns out the actual fire was underneath them, in the basement. Even though the chief didn't consciously know the fire was in the basement at the time, his gut instinct, based on data and prior life experience, told his subconscious to run. So he made the call to leave the house. In the box, you will meet customers that also have a sixth sense. If they feel a situation is unsafe, like dealing with somebody that is only focused on making money, they're going to run. If you're sending this message to your customer that you're only there for you and you're only thinking about your PVR, you're going to have a tough time if their gut tells them not to buy or to be careful. At a minimum, the customer is going to withhold their trust from you. Once you lose trust, you're not likely to sell them anything. Now, we can call it the trust alarm, our sixth sense, or just plain old anxiety. Some people come in with their defenses up, right? So, we spend a lot of time learning how to close. We dig deep into the sales training handbook in order to overcome their objections. Customers do something similar. They often create strategies for saying no. Picture a husband and wife simply out kicking tires with a commitment between each other that no matter what, they will not buy today. They plot out a story beforehand about refinancing their house or some other bogus reason with the intention of lying to the salesperson as to why they cannot buy today. Why would they do that? They're not alone. Consider a telemarketer. Have you ever said that you didn't have time when you did? Why would a customer plot to lie beforehand? Is it possible that they are afraid of us? In a recent Gallup poll on ethics, we find car people are at the bottom of the list below lawyers and members of Congress. So maybe they are afraid of us. It seems that years of dysfunctional sales practices have led to dysfunctional buying practices. This begs the question, does the customer's anxiety play a major part in the sales process? Absolutely. When people are nervous, they don't focus well. Sometimes they won't even comprehend or understand your products or your presentations. Being trustworthy. We live in a world full of locks. Your door's locked, your car's locked, your computer's locked, your phone's locked. Don't forget to lock up when you leave. And the list goes on. We are conditioned not to trust, but we still wish that we could. Thousands of years ago, we had to band together to survive. The world was a pretty wild place, and we were on the menu for all kinds of predators. We survived through teamwork. You sleep, and I'll watch out for threats. My ancestors and yours needed to cooperate with each other by protecting food, sharing resources, and guarding against predators. They had to trust each other, or they would die. And they did trust each other. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be here today. Basically, 100% of our ancestors lived long enough to mate and reproduce because of one thing: trust. Without trust, mankind simply would not exist. So, how do we develop trust with our clients and our coworkers as well as our friends and our family? We must walk the walk. We must behave with the qualities of self-trust. When we trust ourselves, people around us see it and feel it. It's that simple. The possibility of possibility. Choice is linked to risk, and risk provokes anxiety. So being in the situation of having to decide on something like a vehicle service contract right now can create varying levels of anxiety for people. Anxiety is actually a survival tool. Emphasis on the word tool. It's a resource and not something to fear. It's valuable for making sure that you make smart business decisions, like when you're buying a car. It's responsible for the gut feeling you get warning you to slow down or to proceed with caution. When you come to realize its functional use as a tool and nothing more, then you can understand the value of it. Anxiety lives in one little part of the brain called the amygdala. Its primary job is to decide what is and isn't safe. If something seems unsafe, it begins the fight or flight process. Once that happens, people will begin to tune out, begin delaying on decisions, or worse, perhaps they'll argue with you and then frame you as being a pushy jerk. Fortunately, getting past the customer's anxiety is within your power. By establishing trust, you will be able to communicate through your customer's anxiety, which is super important if you hope to discuss the value of your products.
Anxiety is the price we pay for the human ability to choose. Soren Kierkegaard.
Building trust. Have you ever seen The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, or Jimmy Fallon? Are you familiar with the opening monologue? You know, the part where he speaks to the audience about current events and makes jokes. Notice, it's not a conversation. He is speaking to them, but they rarely ever speak back. This is a monologue. In Latin, mono stands for one. One person is talking here, which is perfect for comedy, but not so hot for sales transactions. We need to establish a dialogue, or more specifically, a two-way conversation, if we hope to effectively communicate ideas and feelings with our customers. In Latin, the word dia means to penetrate through. For us, we need to penetrate through all the preconceived ideas that our customers arrived with and show them that we are not what they expected. It's the only way that we can prove we are not just another salesperson. For this to happen, we will be working with our customers in two different areas. The thinking self, which controls logic and competency, and the feeling self, which controls character and ethics. On the thinking self, it is our ability to create a feeling of safety for our customers in a way that allows them to speak freely about their concerns. It is our professionalism. It is our knowledge base. It is where logic and problem-solving live. It is our technique and our competency. Our problem-solving skills are necessary if we hope to create the best ownership experience for our customers. In our case, it means not only understanding the lenders, the laws, and the products, but also having the ability to apply critical thought to your customers' needs, then discussing the right product mix that creates the best ownership experience for them. You could be the most well-intentioned person in the world, an honest person in every way, but if you cannot demonstrate with competency how a product helps, you will not be successful. So, if we're going to be effective and help our customers achieve the best ownership experience, we need the ability to communicate in a way that helps people quickly recognize our level of professionalism and competency. On the feeling self. This is what we refer to as a gut feeling. It is the desire to be fair. It is our ability to feel empathy for others. It is where love, art, and passion originate. It is doing the right thing. It is our intent. It's our purpose. It is our character. A good deal of the material F&I managers learn during F&I training are designed for the thinking self. Techniques like word tracks and closes are about making people think, but if those techniques do not serve your intent, your purpose, your character, then everything that you do will seem inauthentic or salesy. It will merely be a manipulation. If our feeling self fails to connect, then our customers won't open up and communicate with us. Transparency will diminish, and it's unlikely that they will ever feel safe enough to trust us. They will believe that there are zero reasons to buy what you're trying to sell them. Even when the benefits of the product are clear, the customer will still say no. On the other hand, if we can connect and our customers are comfortable and open and honest with us, then we will have a chance. Putting the thinking and feeling self together. So let's say that we connect. Your feeling self has formed an opinion that I'm a pretty good person, and yet I fail to bring enough intellectual rigor to justify why you could benefit from a product that I'm offering. Then you'll still say no. So when taking the time to build or construct your dialogue with the customers, we want to work on both dimensions, thinking and feeling, if we hope to inspire trust. The first dimension is using our feeling self by being transparent in our communication and showing our true intent is to offer and discuss products that truly help. This is grounded in our belief in those products and our ability to highly endorse those products. The second dimension is using our thinking self by showing our competency, our knowledge, as it relates to our products, knowing and showing exactly how the proposed product helps people. To be more concise, we must be knowledgeable and show good intent if we hope to generate trust. Our product knowledge and closing skills are worthless if we can't get past the customer's gut feeling, the feeling that is causing them to stall in the first place. And our good intentions are worthless if we don't understand how the products actually solve their problems. Can you be trusted? When you display both your thinking and feeling self, people will let their guard down and let you in. This is the beginning of trust. There's a dynamic at play here between our head and our gut. Our brain recognizes competency, understands data, and makes data judgments based on what can be seen. However, our gut makes decisions on what can be felt. So, while I may understand that the VSE coverage will only add $7 a month to my payment, my gut is telling me that something is off. It feels too cheap. So I ask, how much does it cost? F&I answers, it's only $7 per month. Zero hard data was still given. I actually want to know the cost. But instead, we are creating a bottleneck in the flow of communication and reducing trust in our transaction. The head and the gut, or the thinking and feeling selves, work together to make decisions, but it's usually the gut, or the feeling self, that wins. And then the thinking self goes on to construct a story to justify the decision that the feeling self has just made. We see this in relationships. The heart wants what the heart wants. The head knows the likelihood for success isn't ideal, but we can't help being with the person that we want anyway because it's what we want. Yet we don't even know why. The same thing happens in transactions. We make the decisions with our gut about trust, and then we move forward. Sometimes even when our heads point out obvious roadblocks. Sometimes we tell ourselves the story that he or she means well and that they were just mistaken because we are so invested in the way that something felt. In the box, we must find congruence with our beliefs. we must be real and authentic. In order to inspire belief, we must believe in the products that we offer and understand exactly how they will help. If we don't, people will feel it in their gut and they will say no. They will feel like we cannot be trusted and they will be right. In short, character comes from your gut. It is the belief that someone will do the right thing. Competency, on the other hand, comes from our head, and it is the belief that someone knows what they are doing. Without this combination, you will find difficulty creating long-term success. Competency. Knowledge is knowing that you know how to do things correctly. It's technical. Do you know your stuff, or are you winging it? Ask yourself, have you ever actually read the fine print on the contracts that you sell to people? Do you understand how the contracts work? How hard is it to file a claim? In short, ask yourself if you're an expert on your products and your job. I hope you are. We display our competency by understanding how we can help our customers have the best ownership experience. Also, by understanding how we can help people avoid economic and financial hardships. This requires that you slow down and ask questions when you don't fully understand something. Maybe pick up the phone and call the product provider and see how the claims process works. Maybe even speak with your service advisors. The key point is to learn everything about what you sell, how it works, and how it helps. When you meet people, they are immediately going to begin making judgments about who you are and thinking, can I trust this person? Having confidence helps a lot. Most people develop confidence from experience. If you skip this part, you cannot be an expert. But there's a big plus side to digging in and fully understanding your products. Competency is the cornerstone of confidence, and confidence inspires trust. Character. Recognizing right from wrong, then choosing right is the foundation of character. Everyone's moral compass is different, but having good intent is still the same. Like the Golden Rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Matthew 7:12. Basically, treat people like you'd like to be treated. This does not mean losing profits. All businesses have revenue goals and must create profit to exist, but you do not need to lie or deceive to create it. Display your character by being fair, by also thinking about your customer's agenda too. Ask yourself, is this offer fair? Would I buy at these terms, or would I advise a friend or family member to buy under these conditions? Again, we must be profitable. I want to be crystal clear. Businesses have revenue goals, and you will have personal revenue goals. Go after them. Just don't lose your ethics or self-esteem in the process. Anytime a customer asks you, how much is it? You should be able to look them directly in the eye and answer. But if you feel the urge to hide the truth, it is a sign that you're not feeling comfortable. As a result, your body language, your vocal tone, and your eye movement will begin to betray you.
When we are being inauthentic, our nonverbal and verbal behaviors begin to misalign. Our facial expressions don't match the words we're saying. Our postures are out of sync with our voices. They no longer move in harmony with each other. They disintegrate into cacophony. Amy Cuddy.
Is it in our DNA to lie or tell the truth? Coco was a gorilla that was born in captivity, and she learned how to interact with humans through sign language. As an adult, she was given a kitten. One day, while angry, Coco ripped the sink out of the wall and then blamed it on the kitten. We can assume she saw lying as her only defense when the researchers asked her what happened. A lie is basically a psychological self-defense. We've all done it. We're just trying to use our intellectual tools to protect ourselves. But we never really feel good about lying, do we? No. People that lie and feel good about it are called psychopaths. Most of us empathize simply because we don't want to be lied to ourselves. Yellow lights. Imagine if we connected with people before we discussed products. Is it at least a possibility our conversations could go differently? Maybe not all the time, but a certain percentage of the time. One way of seeing this is asking yourself, how can I be more than just another salesperson in their eyes? Is it possible that you could slow down, be completely authentic, and become the most positive part of their day? Could you possibly get a real smile from them? Could you maybe add so much value that they leave with respect for your knowledge and professionalism? Now, this will not occur if you're in a hurry. In fact, this may seem counterintuitive, but it's okay to slow down when you see yellow lights. Yes, I know the next customer is waiting and the sales manager is staring at you through the window. It's added pressure, but let's consider the transaction from a couple different angles. From the perspective of the dealership itself, like any business, profit is its lifeblood. So making a profit and keeping it are super important. The better transaction we have with the customer, the better chance they have of understanding the value of our products. This leads to more sales and lower chargebacks. What about from the perspective of the customer? It is at least a possibility that they might want to have a nice experience with you. Is it possible that they might want something to go right in their lives and it's supposed to be this car? With that in mind, ask yourself, how can I use my communication skills to improve their day, my day, and meet my dealership's goals? Answer that question and you immediately become a better F&I manager. Stop worrying about the transaction times. If you're a profitable team player, you'll earn the freedom to discuss changes that will speed up the transaction process. I can prove it. Increase your PVR and see how quickly your GM and your sales managers forgive the extra few minutes with your customer. But soon, there won't be any extra time to worry about. Because when we inspire trust in people, they say yes earlier in the transaction. So, let's address the hurry that everybody seems to be feeling. The interesting thing that everybody seems to be missing is twofold. Number one, the reason the customer is in a hurry is because they are no longer enjoying the process. Make it enjoyable, and that hurry begins to evaporate. As they say, time flies when you're having fun. Number two, the reason the transaction is taking too long is because of the lack of trust. If you can silence the trust alarm, the process will speed up. If you set it off, the process will slow down. It's that simple. If the customer doesn't trust you or your product or fears being ripped off, everything's going to go slowly. If the salesperson on deck doesn't trust you'll spin the deal quick enough and his customer will change their mind, it's going to seem too long. If the sales manager took a short deal and doesn't trust your ability to make it up on the back, he will fear having to explain why he took a short deal. Basically, when we have an overall lack of trust, it always creates fear. Have you ever had someone read the fine print on every form? This is an extreme lack of trust. This is a yellow light. So slow down and address it. Be authentic. Ask them if they've had a bad experience in the past. Then promise to be completely honest and slow down and do what you can to make it comfortable for them. Change their perception of car people by genuinely showing that you care. Bring your character and your competency, your knowledge and your integrity, your head and your gut, your thinking and your feeling self to the customer, and the process will quicken. Perception is reality. 88% of Americans believe that they have superior driving skills compared to most. Obviously, this cannot be true. People in general feel their skill level is above average in leadership skills, personal health, and ethics, just to name a few. In a strange twist, the less qualified people are, the more confident they tend to be. This is referred to as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Discovered in 1999, it hypothesized that people are confused in two ways. First, they often fail at skills. Second, they lack the understanding to clearly understand their cause of failure. Once people slow down to educate themselves, they're pretty quick to admit their mistakes. It's just that most people don't take the time to educate. On the other hand, smart people make the mistake of thinking everyone else is equally as smart. This too has the same effect of creating an inaccurate self-image. If you're too dumb, you can't understand how you're wrong. If you're too smart, you can't understand that other people don't understand you. These are all beliefs. which is a very strange thing. If we don't believe anything bad is ever going to happen to us, it's going to be pretty hard to convince us to prepare for it. If I don't believe I'll ever use your product, I'm going to have a hard time buying it. In order to inspire change, you must believe in change. Belief is a two-way street. Nobody is going to believe you if you don't believe yourself. A lack in your self-confidence is something that other people will feel. If you're lacking confidence, people will notice. What determines our level of self-esteem is in direct relationship with our habits and our principles. Having the discipline of acting a certain way to achieve your goals builds it up. Ignoring the work of living by your principles destroys it. You must live in accordance with your beliefs if you wish to be credible. In the box, this means that you also must see value in the same products that you sell. Types of truth. When we are trying to create trust, it is assumed that we must discuss the truth. I mean, how else can you trust someone if you're not telling the truth? But what is the truth? Is it always the truth that someone needs the product that you're offering them? Probably not. But you have economic goals, so you're probably going to ask for the sale even when you're not sure if they need it. But how do you know? Even the smartest person in the world cannot predict with certainty what the future holds. Ultimately, we are working with two different types of truth: absolute truth and believed truth. An example of absolute truth is gravity. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. Gravity is always there, whether you want it or not. Money, however, is not absolute. It is believed. We all agree that it has value, and if our values changed, so would its value. Money can feed you, but you cannot eat it. If the belief in money's value changes, it could become worthless. Its utility comes from our mutual belief in its value. Likewise with the products that we offer. We are never working with absolute truth, only believed truth. Will the car break down? Who knows? Will having the coverage make you feel better while you own it? I think we can all agree that it will. Conversation is not comprehension. We usually don't know much about our customers. We don't know their needs. We don't have much time to explore their driving habits or their ownership goals. So we often end up wondering what we can sell them as opposed to understanding their actual situation. Maybe we subscribe to the 300% rule, offer them everything, hope they bite on something. In short, we guess. Why? Reason number one, we fear that we will kill the deal by taking too long. Reason number two, we fear engaging in conversation because we may look uninformed on our products. Reason number three, we skip trying to understand people because it's just easier to offer everything. Unfortunately, the more that we guess, the more likely that we are going to be wrong. If our goal is really about helping our customers have the best ownership experience, then we have the right and the obligation not to simply guess. We often mistake conversation with comprehension. We assume that because we understand what something means to us, that it must mean the same to everyone else too. To avoid guessing, we need to listen carefully to the words and phrases that our customers use and then ask them what those words and phrases mean to them. In other words, clarify. Here's an example of a pattern that I like to use when I'm trying to clarify information with somebody. Customer says, "I don't want a high interest rate." I would reply with, "If I asked 10 different people what they considered high, I'd get 10 different answers. May I ask what high means to you?" The customer replies, "Well, my credit union's at blank percent," or "I don't want to pay more than I did on my last car, which was blank percent," or "I don't know, probably blank." Sometimes, when we ask the customer to clarify their words, we learn something that we didn't expect. And that something can be even more valuable than we anticipated. Framing your conversation. Unless you're working for the power company or the DMV, you're not going to sell everyone. In order to sell more often, you'll need to model your pitch to your audience. For instance, if your customer is very affluent, then a product that provides budget protection may not seem very important to them. However, the same product discussed from a different point of view could save them time or create comfort. Now, that product might be appealing enough to buy. This is what we refer to as framing. Framing helps people see the benefit as it applies to them. If you're into prestige, I will try and frame my conversation around comfort and convenience. If you're concerned about your budget, then I'll try and frame the conversation about saving you money. Ideally, I'm going to listen to you and then frame the conversation around helping you add comfort, avoid pain, or possibly both. Can we ask the customer, hey, what's important to you? Time? Money? Something else? Yes. Yes, you can. And it will work if it's genuine. The goal here is to be genuine at trying to help your customer have the best experience. Doing that opens up the door to these types of communication. The science of framing, prospect theory. In the box and in life, we sometimes frame things in a way that keeps us or our customer from really understanding the problem. Could the way that we present a product influence the amount of risk a person will choose to take? Yes, it can. And if you've been in F&I for more than a month, you've experienced it. One small phrase, framed negatively, in your presentation can quickly translate into a customer saying no, reflexively. Nobel Prize-winning economist Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky developed a theory about this called prospect theory. It describes how people make decisions, like financial decisions, based on how the information felt, rather than the actual information itself. For instance, if we use risk as a closing tool, like in mechanical breakdown, we are more likely to see the customer adopt a risk-seeking mindset. Instead, if we use benefit as a closing tool, the customer is more likely to adopt a benefit-seeking mindset. Ultimately, a blended approach is often necessary, but I recommend always starting with the benefits. According to Kahneman and Tversky, presenting a problem as a potential loss actually adds momentum to risk-seeking behavior, while framing the situation as a gain adds momentum to risk aversion behavior. Test it. Imagine for a moment that you work in a large dealership with a few hundred other employees. Financially, the store is experiencing some losses, and the general manager has decided that 60 layoffs are necessary. To assist, the general manager and the dealer principal have brought in 2 outside consulting firms to see if there's any way to save the 60 jobs. ABC Consulting proposes Solution A. If we adopt Solution A, 20 jobs will be saved. They also propose Solution B. Solution B has a 1/3 probability that all jobs will be saved and a 2/3 probability that none of the jobs will be saved. Which one do you favor, A or B? Make a note of it. XYZ Consulting also brings 2 proposals. Solution C means 40 people will lose their jobs. Solution D has a 1/3 probability that nobody will lose their jobs and a 2/3 probability that everyone will lose their jobs. Again, out of C and D, which one do you favor? Make a note of it. Now that we have your responses, let's examine the typical responses. We've found on average that people answer the first and second question differently. The first question is predominantly answered by risk aversion, Solution A, and the second question is predominantly answered by risk-seeking tendencies, Solution D. So what's going on? The 2 situations are basically identical. The questions are statistically the same, but they consistently elicit different answers. The only difference is that the first question focuses on the amount of jobs that might be saved. And the second question focuses on the amount of jobs that might be lost. When we frame the situation as potential gain by using the word saved in solutions A and B, we see people behaving much more risk adverse. When we frame the situation as a potential loss, as in solutions C and D, we see people behaving with more risk-seeking behavior. And the point is that we can see the same person fluctuate from risk-seeking to risk-aversion behavior just because we ask the question differently. We find the way we frame the situation by small changes in our wording or our language directly influences our propensity to take or reject risk. In other words, the way we define the problem dictates the way our customer responds to it. So how does this work in the box? Ask yourself, how often does the all cars break eventually close work on a person buying their fourth Honda because they've never had a problem? Not very well. F&I managers are traditionally taught to close based on loss or risk, mechanical breakdown, or economic hardship. According to prospect theory, framing the purchase as a potential problem encourages the customer to become more of a risk taker. So instead of getting a sale, you get to hear, I'll take my chances. To avoid encouraging risk-seeking behavior, we must talk about benefits and solutions first. Then, only if necessary, discuss the possible loss or risk that you're trying to protect them from experiencing. Good. This is a personal story, but I believe it demonstrates the effectiveness of slowing down for yellow lights and engaging your thinking self, then reframing your view. We lost an important client in January of 2018 that represented a sizable amount of our company's revenue. Immediately, for about 15 minutes after hearing the news, I was stunned. My feeling self was very engaged. Honestly, I never anticipated it. The relationship was leveraged nicely in their favor. We provided a higher level of service than expected, and the relationship was mutually open and helpful. But our client hired a new CEO, and just like hiring a new head coach, he had existing relationships with people that he already liked and trusted. He gave us the axe on his second day without even comparing our companies. I was at a loss, professionally stunned. I had to ask myself, do I frame this new situation as a threat or as an opportunity? I mean, yes, it's a threat to my income and my ego. Both of those make sense. But where are the hidden opportunities? After calming my feeling self down, I spent a few minutes with my thinking self. Then I began to consider this new circumstance from multiple angles. I saw things clearly, and it changed my life in a couple of huge ways. For the last several years, I had been spending about 150 nights a year away from home for this one client. I was traveling endlessly, and I was exhausted. The extra time allowed me to do what I wanted, and I wanted to spend it with the people closest to me. The connection and conversations that I wanted to have with my wife and my children, they were just difficult to acquire. Everyone was always busy, and I was always working or I was gone. I wanted to travel to places other than dealerships for a change. No offense. So, I decided to see the good in the new situation. I bought an RV, and we traveled with my daughter, who just graduated from high school, for a whole year. We had the experience of staying in the Rocky Mountains, just outside of Denver, on a dude ranch in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We floated in the Great Salt Lake of Utah. We were in the deep forest outside of Seattle. We experienced the weirdness of Portland. We stayed for a month on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean in San Francisco. We were in the redwood forest outside of Santa Cruz. We were in Hollywood, Las Vegas, and Vancouver, too. We also went to some of the most desolate places in America, like Meteor Crater, the Petrified Forest, the Grand Canyon, the Navajo Nation, and Antelope Canyon. We spent several weeks in each location, and it was great. None of this would have happened without slowing down my feeling self and allowing my thinking self to get to work, stopping the anxiety of the unknown long enough to embrace the new opportunity of working from the road and spending time seeing the country with my family. Truly, it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip.
There's no such thing as a free lunch. Milton Friedman.
Chapter 3. Factors. Monday night, 9:38 p.m. Marathon deal finally closed. He looked at me and said, "If it breaks, I'll fix it." I replied, and I began to tell him how expensive the electronics are, how our labor rate was over $100 an hour, how many of the diagnostics could only be performed at the selling dealer. Then he said, and I'm not lying, "Well, if it breaks, I'll just trade it in." Our customers should know better, but they often don't know or understand the facts. So what are the facts? Fact number 1. Most of your customers have very little savings available for emergencies or unexpected hardships. Fact number 2. Most of your customers have very little idea about the actual cost of ownership or reliability. During times of economic prosperity, people don't fear being sold because spending a little bit extra money isn't a big deal when you have more than enough. But today, Americans are finding that they have less disposable income as inflation continues to grow. So, they will make what they perceive to be the most dollar-saving decision possible based on their perception. For some, the word no is like a lower payment coupon. We must learn to intelligently discuss our products as it relates to saving people money if we want them to consider the benefits. Many people don't realize how much has changed in the last 20 years. Overall, inflation is up 48.9% on basic goods and services, but over 250% for most vehicles. That's right, inflation is up 48.9%, and wages are only up 2.9%. Meanwhile, household income is stagnant, barely moving, from $61,399 in 2000 to $63,179 as of 2018. This presents more need than ever for our customers to protect their budgets. More importantly for F&I managers, the cavalier attitude that people used to have with their money from 20 years ago is gone. People have changed. Customers today have no choice but to spend wisely or risk the quality of their life. How we got here. From 1945 to 1965, Americans had the highest standard of living in the world. Our production and employment were high, and we made some of the best products on earth, largely because the rest of the world had been blown to pieces during World War II. We had a robust economy. We had lots of disposable income because everybody was making money. Additionally, inflation was capped by the Federal Reserve holding gold prices at $35 an ounce. Times were good. But in 1971, things began to change, and we've basically been in an economic decline since. The U.S. government decided to no longer convert dollars to gold, which had been the standard policy since 1933. The American economy that worked very effectively in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s was beginning to unravel. The theme of the 1970s became recessions and hardships. Nixon stepped down from the presidency. Oil embargoes resulted in a lack of gasoline, and inflation began to outpace wages. We had years of boom and bust, with inflation gradually outpacing household income, but it was manageable with the exception of a few recessions along the way. Many people found economic success by outworking and outrunning inflation until 2008. In the 2008 recession, almost everyone struggled. The automotive industry was no exception. Many dealers didn't survive. While adjusting to the new economy, F&I managers began sharing with me that their word tracks were becoming less effective, as if all the customers had become a little more cynical. During that period of time, I felt I needed to take a hard look at F&I in the new environment, so I began taking occasional F&I spending assignments in distinctly different environments: independent stores, highline stores, even recreational. The basic enjoyment of working inside the dealership with customers again didn't hurt my spirits. I quickly discovered that the F&I training that I had been taught in the early 1990s, all the closes that I had been teaching to hundreds of F&I managers, were indeed less effective. People were more cynical. I knew I would have to change if I wanted success. Rather than presenting products and trying to overcome objections all the time, I shifted my thinking. For the first time in my career, I was having real conversations with my customers about their goals for the vehicle. I began to see products like service contracts, GAP, and Paint and Fab as ways to protect their budgets instead of just ways for me to make gross. Surprisingly, the gross was still there, but my attitude was completely different. My product count went way up. My chargebacks went way down. By not selling, I actually sold more. Now, today I understand why. I was focused on helping people, not selling people. The difference is paramount. I didn't apply the 300% rule. Instead, I listened to people, I shared with people, I kept my process transparent, and I ran the highest numbers ever. The truth about people. Mark was a very polished and persuasive sales manager for a large Toyota store. He averaged over $200,000 a year in the same store that he had been in for the last 5 years. So why was he broke? The same reason most Americans are. Almost all of us engage in some pretty dysfunctional behavior and, we don't want to talk about it. But it's true. It's our culture. The more we make, the more we spend. For most, more money means nicer clothes, nicer houses in nicer neighborhoods, nicer cars, more entertainment, the newest smartphone, more dinners out at nicer restaurants, more money given to friends or family with their own problems, etc., etc. What it does not mean is more money set aside for savings on rainy days. As a culture, we simply don't save. That said, let me be clear. This is not criticism. It's only information. I will not criticize people for having nicer things or a better life. Nicer things create a better quality of life, and sometimes we need that, myself included. We need rewards for working hard. Otherwise, what's the point? When we reward ourselves, we get a dose of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Our brains release it when we feel achievement or success. This is absolutely critical for our well-being. But we care about our loved ones too. So we put in the hours to provide a better life for them. This behavior tells our brains to give us a dose of oxytocin, the warm, fuzzy drug that our brains release when we give of ourselves to others. This is something that we feel around teams, units, clubs, strong families, etc. It comes from belonging to something greater than yourself, and it is absolutely critical if you want to feel complete. Missing either one of these chemical emotions can leave you unbalanced. For instance, you could have a fat bank account but still feel empty inside. Alternatively, you could feel a deep devotion to family, friends, or loved ones, but still feel like purpose or achievement are still missing. We get oxytocin when we help other people. We get dopamine when we help ourselves. We need both in balance for happiness. Too much or too little in either direction, and you can quickly become unbalanced and unhappy. Let's say that I spend all my time crushing it. Everywhere I go to the gym and I crush it. I go to work and I crush it. My bank account is crushing it. And I'm filled to the top with dopamine. Could I still feel empty? Yes. I'll feel empty because I'm missing the oxytocin that comes from feelings of love and team. We need that feeling of love and acceptance too. This ties directly into our interactions with our customers. Our goal should be finding the perfect balance of dopamine and oxytocin. This is the key to finding happiness in the box too. By focusing on making money for ourselves, we create dopamine. By focusing on solving problems for our customers, we create oxytocin. When we can find the ideal blend of these two chemicals, our lives improve. In the box, we want to teach our customers about the products that will help improve the quality of their lives and create the best ownership experience, while getting paid nicely for providing those solutions. This, in my opinion, is the essence of good F&I. Most people either reward themselves or those that they care about. As a result, there's very little money left over. This is a core reason why your customer doesn't want to give you any more of their money. It's likely that their budget is already tight enough, regardless of their income. You might think I'm speaking about lower income customers here. I'm not. This is a similar story all the way from the buy here, pay here lots into the Porsche and Mercedes stores. Somewhere between 50 to 90% of the customers that walk through your door are on a tight budget. In 2016, Bloomberg did a story on earners making over $150,000 a year and found that half of them are nearly broke, that they had very little saved, and they couldn't miss more than a couple weeks at work before they fell behind on their bills. This is just another example that as a culture, we're so focused on right now that we don't plan for tomorrow. Although we see a trend of more people earning over $100,000 a year, we must also pay attention to the uncomfortable truth that $100,000 worth of goods in the year 2000 would cost $149,000 today. Wages are well below where they should be relative to advances in automotive inflation, and no relief is coming. When wages rise, the stock market falls. This is because corporations recognize that higher wages equal lower profits. So again, prices must go up, and the cycle will continue. Many families have been dealing with tight budgets for a long time now. Because money is tighter, people are focused on not getting sold. Even when products like prepaid maintenance can help them save money and have better control over their budgets, some people will still say no. That said, money will become even tighter if trends continue. The result will inevitably be more customers arguing over payments or surrendering to longer terms. Willpower and Marshmallows. In the 1960s, a group of young children were part of a study on patience and deferring rewards for greater gain, or so they thought. The study was actually about framing. Researchers would bring each child into a room and then tell the child, "This is your marshmallow. You can eat it any time you like, but if you're willing to wait until I come back, I'll give you another one." For some children, the researcher would walk out and within seconds the marshmallow was gone, eaten, and only an empty plate was all that remained. For others, they fought to control themselves. They'd sniff it, they'd lick it, they'd hold it, they'd talk to themselves about the dilemma that they were facing. Yet, there were a few that understood the goal clearly. Defer instant gratification now for a greater reward later. These are people that you don't have to sell. They are already listening and forming judgments and opinions based on data. They are making assessments of your character while waiting for the data on your products. But the deferred gratification group is getting smaller. Usually, we find ourselves sitting across from the customer that is completely concerned about one thing: getting the lowest payment today and not giving any consideration to the best payment, or the payment that solves tomorrow's problems. The lowest payment conundrum. Everyone wants the lowest payment, right? Well, how do we get there? By stretching out the term and skipping all the financial protection options? Probably not a good idea. This sets the customer up for higher finance charges, additional negative equity, and potential economic hardships. What is the best payment? Well, it's the payment that is designed to create equity and prevent economic hardship. An example of the best payment would be protecting themselves by adopting solutions for mechanical breakdowns, cost-effective servicing, and keeping their vehicle's appearance intact, as well as eliminating gaps in insurance coverage. Having the best payment simply means making intelligent choices that will create the best ownership experience. Sometimes this can be difficult. Sometimes your customers are so focused on the lowest payment that they'll tune out anything that you say about products. Sometimes they fear the best payment when they should actually fear a breakdown, a need for gap, or just negative equity, because these types of events are far more traumatic than finding an extra $40 or $50 a month for protection. Recently, the CEO of a nationally known publicly traded lender told me, quote, "Many of our customers have less than $400 in emergency savings." Now, this is disturbing, and it's not just subprime customers. It's everywhere. Even customers shopping in Highline stores have very little savings. Now, some of you guys can relate. I often hear from F&I managers looking for new jobs, and they'll say, "I need to make at least 12 grand a month or it's not worth getting out of bed." But they too have very little saved, and then they go on to explain how they really need to get back to work right away, or else. We often want the best of everything. We want it now, and without considering the true cost. That's why credit card companies are so profitable. It's also why customers skip important products like extended service contracts and gap insurance, only to find out later that a single repair or gap claim can economically devastate them. Sometimes to the point where their rent or mortgage payments are in jeopardy. One unfortunate automotive event could ruin their credit for years. Even if they're able to use a credit card to finance their way through the current problem, it's not a quality solution. They could easily pay twice as much for a repair over time. And that assumes that they're paying a fair price for the repair. In the air conditioner example, we see an initial cost of $1397.59 is more than doubled to a true cost of $29.17 after interest is charged by the credit card provider. The truth about vehicles. We are in exceptional times. Throughout all of human history, no one has ever owned anything quite like a modern car. Making all the pieces work together is an amazing achievement. This is the result of millions of human labor hours. Accordingly, vehicles today have more computer code than almost anything else ever made. More than smartphones, more than computers, more than the space shuttle, more than a fighter jet, even more than the Hadron Collider that we use for splitting atoms. Nothing else we own is like a modern car. What is a car exactly? It's just a metal cage with a bunch of parts from all over the world working together to help us travel. It's also likely to be the most technologically advanced thing that you or I will ever own. It is a machine that is powered by fire. It's forced to operate in incredibly hot and cold climates, designed to provide safety, security, and reliability, all while hitting potholes at 60 miles an hour. Many of today's vehicles have upwards of 100 million lines of code, making sure that each one of the 50 to 200 onboard computers are working. Many of these computers are system critical for the safety and proper operation of the vehicle. If they fail, it could mean failure to launch airbags or deploy ABS on the super important side, or just the inability to play your favorite song on the less significant side. When you think about it, this technology is why we buy newer cars, isn't it? In short, a car is an amazing accomplishment. Yet some of your customers expect them to always operate perfectly. Why? Is expecting flawless reliability a reasonable belief? All right, so I'm just going to say this, and I'm sorry, but all cars will eventually break down. It's true. Given enough time, parts will break. They will malfunction. They will fail. It's that simple. That said, some cars are better than others. Let's explore why. What do most corporations do? They pursue profit, of course. This is their primary objective. Yes, they may wish to innovate or they may have some noble philosophical goals at their core, but ultimately, they must create profit for shareholders or they face management turnover. Businesses require profits to remain in business, and CEOs must generate profits to keep their jobs. Quarterly reports, not ethics, determine CEO longevity in most cases. Not that CEOs are bad, but they have a responsibility to create profit and effectively compete against their competitors. This is not a secret. It's not as if the manufacturer even has a choice in the matter. It's an incredibly competitive marketplace. Revenue goals must be hit, and it's not easy to raise prices without losing customers. Very few automakers have a niche demographic of people with unlimited income to spend. For everyone else, automakers must try and balance manufacturing cost, maintain profit margins, and offer a product that is still price competitive in the marketplace. So, they have third-party companies bid on building the parts that they need. Of course, the third-party companies are also working on tight margins. After all, they had to be the lowest bidder to win the contract. They also need to provide a quality part or risk harming the brand's reputation. This is not always possible, and is the main reason why your customers can benefit from having a quality vehicle service contract. Any part can fail, regardless of the brand on the front of the vehicle. Sometimes an automaker will switch a part when they see the performance of that part diminishing too quickly. For owners of these cars, they will soon be on their own with a part that wasn't known to be inferior at the time that the manufacturer selected it. Test it. Imagine for a moment that you work for a major automotive manufacturer that sells 1 million units a year, and you've found a way to save 25 cents on each valve stem. This would save the company $100,000. Would you do it? If you answered yes, it's probably because your pay plan provides incentives for you to create a profit. Now imagine if instead of just valve stems, you were able to negotiate lower costs for every single part on the car. That basically by only building the engine, transmission, frame, and body, and outsourcing everything else to third-party companies, your company would save $1,000 per unit and gross an additional $1 billion a year. How much incentive would $1 billion a year provide? Follow the money. Parts fail. This is why we have auto parts stores in every town. This is also why auto parts stores are thriving. If you invested $1 in the Dow Jones Industrials or the NASDAQ Composite Index in January of 2010, your dollar would be worth between $2.66 and $3.80 in January 2020, pre-corona. But if you invested that same dollar in auto parts providers such as AutoZone or O'Reilly, your dollar would be worth between $6.82 and $10.78. These auto parts companies have outperformed the general market by nearly 3 to 1. Would this kind of growth be possible if vehicles didn't incur breakdowns? No. If you're still not sure that vehicles break down, check the 2020 J.D. Power Dependability Study. Nearly every vehicle made had some problem within the first 3 years. Genesis was the best with 89 problems per 100 vehicles manufactured, and the worst had over 200 per 100 vehicles manufactured. That said, automakers know with relative certainty how their vehicles are likely to perform, and they provide their factory warranty coverage with that in mind. This is why the basic bumper-to-bumper warranty isn't very long on most cars. Of course, occasionally we see companies like Chrysler in 1997 and 2003 or Volkswagen in 2018 offer longer warranties to stimulate sales, but even then, the majority of the coverage is only on the engine and transmission, not on the third-party parts. Do your customers actually need coverage? Does your customer actually need a VSC, gap, or paint protection? To figure this out, we have to define exactly what the word need means to each one of us. What does the word need mean to you? In our customer's world, need might mean the customer needs a vehicle service contract because they're likely to experience a breakdown. Another customer might need a vehicle service contract because they have no disposable income left over. Another customer might need the VSC because at this point in their life they can afford comfort and peace of mind. Conversely, another customer might just need to win in the negotiation. When I say win, I mean leave the car dealership without getting hurt. as they see it. Not being sold a bill of goods is what they feel that they need more than the protection of the product or service that you're offering them. It's emotional, not logical, but it is still a need. What your customers actually need. Each year, the American Automotive Association, AAA, completes a report on the average cost of ownership and operation of vehicles. They consider 7 different factors: maintenance, license and registration, insurance, fuel, tires, finance charges, and the big one, depreciation. While we cannot assist with things like fuel and license, taxes, or their insurance cost, we can have some influence on vehicle depreciation, maintenance, repairs, tires, and finance charges. These costs represent 62.9% of the overall cost of ownership and can be reduced through products like vehicle service contracts, maintenance plans, paint and fabric protection, cosmetic wheel protection, key fob protection, and even more attractive financing options. Test it. Do products really help? Imagine a car in excellent condition, with perfect paint, perfect interior, free of repairs, with plenty of warranty in place. It has a solid history of all its maintenance. Is it worth more than a vehicle in average condition with average wear? Keeping the car perfect adds value not only economically, but it also adds enjoyment, prestige, and it works to reduce people's anxiety. Fake news. Dave Ramsey says, skip the protection. And this is what the so-called experts on TV say too, but they don't bring any data. Instead, they only have opinions. They are not actually risk experts. Actuaries and underwriters are where I get my data. People on TV are just really experts in the entertainment business. Their job is to attract and keep viewers, period. If the viewers stop watching, the so-called experts become unemployed. Now, no one really regulates what is and isn't true. TV shows levy opinions, but they don't supply hard data. No one discusses actuarial rates or loss ratios for vehicles and insurance products, so instead, they just make statements of opinion. The media, similar to their advertisers, have very little restriction on what cannot be said or claimed. So often, opinions are presented as facts, just like cigarettes and sugar once were. The experts haven't been in the insurance business for over 2 decades, but I have. I've worked for and with some of the largest companies in the world. I understand risk and what it takes to build a vehicle service contract program from the ground up. That said, I always buy the VSC coverage on my vehicles, on furniture, cell phones, and etc. too. I like to have the real experts manage my risk. I had 9 claims over the last few years. Maybe I'm unlucky. Still, when something goes wrong, it's rare that it's a real problem. Claims paid. 1. A new iPhone, covered by AppleCare. 2. My O2 sensor, covered by my vehicle service contract. 3. Front strut, covered by my vehicle service contract. 4. A broken shifter cable, covered by my vehicle service contract. 5. My clutch sensor, covered by my vehicle service contract. 6. The water pump, covered by my vehicle service contract. 7. A strut connector for convertible top, covered by the vehicle service contract. 8. A stain on my couch, covered by Guardsman. 9. A new printer, covered by SquareTrade. In return, I received no major out-of-pocket expenses, no major loss of time, and no major inconvenience. The thing that I'm looking for when I consider insurance is what makes sense. So, if it's a quality program, I add it. Side note, I also pay retail pricing every time on my automotive products. Even though I could buy at cost, I don't. I want to have the same experience that my customer has, and I also want to support F&I profitability. Test it. Imagine that you are a professional mechanic and your car breaks down. Yes, you could fix it, but you shouldn't. Here's why. Good mechanics work quickly. If the repair guide says the job should take 1 hour. A master mechanic can finish it a lot faster. He can earn 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours of labor time for each actual hour of real time. In short, he'll lose a chunk of his own income by working on his own car. So, to put this in perspective, consider a different profession. Barber A averages 1 cut per hour, and Barber B can average 3 cuts in an hour. Who makes more money? This is basically the same thing. For the rest of us, the garage will still charge us whatever the labor guide says, regardless of how many actual hours the mechanic takes to complete the repair. Also, let's not forget that there are many different labor guides, and repair shops will always use what benefits them. The common labor guides are All Data, Motor, Mitchell, and Chilton. I don't know about you, but I'm experienced, and I don't know how to tell if a shop is being honest on labor hours or parts pricing without doing some research. I also don't want to haggle with multiple mechanics and garages trying to find the best deal in town. So, I buy a quality vehicle service contract on every car I purchase, and I let the insurance company babysit the repair facility for me while I drive away in the loaner. These are realities that the so-called experts on TV never mention. They never mention that the smallest failure could take hours to repair and cost thousands of dollars. They never mention reliability varies by make and model. They never mention the labor guides. They never mention anything about fair pricing from the mechanic. But if you want a second opinion, ask any mechanic how long it would take to diagnose a short in the wiring harness. Good luck getting a precise answer.
Watch your thoughts. They become words. Watch your words. They become actions. Watch your actions. They become habit. Watch your habits. They become character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. Lao Tzu.
Chapter 4. Purpose. Thursday afternoon, 3:38 p.m. Recontract. He looked at me and said, "No, thank you." This was a big problem because I forgot my ethics at the door. The desk miscalculated the tag fees on this guy's lease, and it left me some leg in the payment. I skipped my normal process completely. Instead of being transparent and decent, I tried to trick my way into a quick product sale. I said, "By the way, our road hazard package is only an extra $3 a month. Sound good?" Thinking he would just agree, but he didn't. His trust alarm was going off, and for good reason. I tried again, hoping to convey the value this time, but no luck. After the third try, he said, "I guess I can't have the car if I don't buy it. So fine, I'll take it. May I just have the car so I can go home, please?" This whole situation was super embarrassing. Then his deal wouldn't fund as contracted. 2 days later, I'm sitting with him again for the recon, convicted for my bad act twice. That was a very long time ago, but it was also the last time I wasn't completely transparent with a customer. Today, I recognized that the only way the customer would have bought was after trust was established, and all I did was destroy it. Lesson learned. Finding purpose. On January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 had to make an emergency landing shortly after departing LaGuardia International Airport in New York. The aircraft, captained by Chelsea Sully Sullenberger, encountered a flock of Canadian geese that flew into both engines and caused a catastrophic failure. He was flying over the city of Manhattan, which made it impossible to land, and he was too far away from the local airports. His only choice was to land the plane in the Hudson River. His thinking and feeling self were displayed over the PA for his passengers as they feared for their lives. Yet, they heard the voice over the PA and felt some level of trust. This was not a man in a state of panic. He was calm while explaining the process of what was about to happen. Now, Sully felt fear just like anyone else would, but his purpose gave him strength. Had he quit, all would have died. But he didn't, and as a result, 155 souls survived. What is your purpose? Making money for the sake of having money isn't enough. What is your why? Money is a tool for bigger things. We must dig deeper to find the underlying purpose for why we want the money. Usually, we find that our sacrifices of long hours and late nights have something very meaningful at the root. We must get in touch with those reasons if we hope to have the courage to be truly transparent with our customers. Storytelling. We believe the story that we've been told about money's value and purpose our whole lives. That story is consistently evolving, and eventually we all learn that money isn't the key to happiness. It's a tool that can bring some happiness, but it's far from guaranteed. And we absolutely know that without money, we will suffer. We absolutely understand that the bank demands it for our homes and our car loans, and the grocery store demands it for the food that we need. Your customer is working with these thoughts when you're asking them for their money. They likely understand the absolute truth that if they waste money, they will have less groceries in the refrigerator. That's pretty easy math, and it's absolute. But what about the intrinsic value, their belief in money? Well, that is still just a story, just like the story that you're just another salesperson. So, tell a new story, one where you share experiences of how you have helped other customers through true stories. If you don't have any, get to work, get involved, get personal. This is what builds your authenticity. The more real you are, the more people will trust that you're telling the truth. Storytelling is very powerful. I can convert $50 a month into peace of mind, safety, comfort. It can help remedy stress, but only if the customer believes it gives those things. So instead of trying to use a slick word track designed to manipulate them into being scared, tell your true stories of how people have been helped because of you. The feeling of the transaction will change in a positive direction. According to rational choice theory, humans always work in their own best interest. Based on beliefs, they make decisions that they feel are in their best interest. If I'm your customer and I feel like you're trying to sell me something I don't need or that you're trying to rip me off, then any data that you share with me will become irrelevant. I will say no, and each time that you attempt to overcome my objection, I will retreat more into my fight or flight responses. This is why we must not focus on closing. Instead, we must focus on telling the truth, regardless of what that means. Because over time, the feeling people get from you will be a much more powerful closing tool than a word track. Test it. A customer asks you, "Do I have to decide today?" Now, from our very own selfish perspective, we want to say yes, even if it's not true. Of course, we might say no, but then begin selling on all the reasons why they should buy today. Not because we care, but because we're thinking of our PVR or our penetration or our paycheck. But for the customer, this situation only adds pressure, or worse, fear. What if instead we do the right thing immediately? We're honest. We say no. Counterintuitive, right? Yeah, but follow me for a moment. Imagine that you're the customer buying a vehicle and you ask me, "Must I buy today?" And my answer causes you to feel uncertain about the purchase. You begin to slow down. You begin to withdraw trust. But if I come across completely honest, you can relax. Maybe you'll say no to the VSC right now. That's okay. I might leave the brochure or the menu on the desk, but I don't push. Then a couple minutes later, you ask a question about the coverage. Boom. Now I begin telling you some real stories. The sale occurs and you feel good about the products and good about our experience together. The Art of F&I. You could look at your job like you're an insignificant cog in the machine, or you could look at it like you're a necessary part of an engine. This is a choice. The behaviors that you bring to work will echo through the culture of your dealership, and eventually through the network that you touch in your community. Behaviors like character, leadership, wisdom, doggedness, and self-discipline. Showing that you can be trusted to do the right thing. This is something that we must bring to work and expand to become our core purpose. In short, we must always agree to do the right thing, regardless of where that leaves us. The economics of always doing the right thing may not be as attractive on one deal, but over the week, or the month, or the year, or over your whole business career, we can see the economics are largely in our favor once we always opt to do the right thing. To begin with, once people learn they can trust us, there's a lot less negotiation. In order for this to occur, we must let go of the outcome. To be blunt, we must stop our focus on overcoming objections. But first, we must quit behaving in ways that create those objections in the first place. We must show people that we are real. We must demonstrate that our purpose is about helping them have a good experience. Of course, we also have the purpose of generating revenue. But so does everyone else, working anywhere for any type of business. Most businesses only exist because they have found a way to make a profit. The need to make a profit is a given. Adjusting margins accordingly to create the proper culture, well, that's optional. Our foremost goal, or focus, needs to be on creating positive experiences for our customers and our coworkers alike. Then, building our growth and profit strategies around those behaviors. When we only focus on profit, everyone tends to suffer. When we focus on creating a quality experience for all parties, it's different. Consider a company like Disney. They are selling an excellent experience and building the price around the cost to provide that experience. Now, being customer-focused sounds easy, but there's a gray area. And many dealers jump deeply into the customer experience. They commit, but it doesn't help their bottom line. Why? Wrong focus. We can't simply focus on our customers. They're often irrational, and they're trying to minimize our profit because years of dysfunctional sales practices have led to dysfunctional consumer behaviors. We need to rein this in. The more professional we are, the more ethical we are, the less dysfunctional the process will be, but it starts with us. F&I managers need to grow into the role of overseer for ethics and standards. Yes, sales of F&I products are still important, but they must take second place to building a sustainable culture of excellence within your store. Most F&I managers are subjected to about 1 week of training on menu, presentation, and overcoming objections, but it's not deep learning. As a result, it becomes impossible to create a culture of excellence in the store. Because of this situation, they often just become clerks. They obey the desk, and then they burn out. This is a huge problem. But the remedy for this problem is finding purpose. Cui Bono. When we begin the interaction with our customers, we are forming a relationship. And if your idea of a relationship is only 30 or 45 minutes, your behavior will reflect it. If the conversation is only about completing a transaction, it will be different than when you're making a friend. This will feel completely different to the customer. There are endless ways to let your customer know that they are more than just another transaction to you. Let's build a relationship with them, one where if you met the customer in the future someday, it would feel positive. A transaction where both parties win. This is our goal, but it takes real commitment to find a win-win. The first problem will be time. The thing about F&I is that nothing happens for 5 hours and then 3 deals close within 30 minutes of each other. You will quickly be reminded by everyone in the building that another customer is waiting. So it may seem impossible to create a relationship in only a few minutes, but it actually happens all the time. In order for it to occur, we must create trust. We must become more than a part of the transaction to them. In order to have a win-win, we must have a two-way street. It is of paramount importance that you know what you hope to accomplish before you meet them. Ask yourself, who benefits? Cui Bono. Are we looking for a transaction where all parties win and leave each other with feelings of respect? I must ask myself, who benefits in this deal? And get my intent customer-focused. I only have one chance to make a first impression that inspires them to relax and communicate with me. Am I focused on profit? Of course. It would be irresponsible not to be. But I hope to find the sweet spot where a balance occurs, a transaction where revenue goals are achieved and CSI excels. Can we add efficiency and satisfaction? Can we have a more predictable bottom line? Absolutely. Ultimately, at the end of the transaction, the customer should feel like, yeah, I'd buy here again. Because a perfect transaction leaves feelings of respect and appreciation, and at its very best, bonding friendships. Authenticity. A large part of belief comes from being authentic, but what you are authentic about also matters. If I am authentically and unapologetically a jerk, then only a small percentage of people are going to warm up to me. If I'm authentically smug or too good for those around me, well, even more people will think I'm a jerk. Our goal must be to find the place in between, a place where we live in harmony with our goals, where we find the internal discipline to live accordingly with our values and demonstrate external empathy for people when they try to find their authentic self but fail. Let's discuss your values. Do you always live in harmony with your principles? No? It's okay. No one's perfect. But if we hope to have self-esteem, or if we hope to even like ourselves when we look in the mirror, we must be on that journey. We must try. When we don't try, we begin to disrespect ourselves. Over time, we feel shame. Sometimes we seek an escape through binging on TV or social media, gaming, or on the more serious side, alcohol, drugs, bad food choices, etc. We seek a source of dopamine that temporarily makes us feel a little less suffering, but it doesn't actually fix the problem. Beyond the box, we must try to live according to our principles in our personal lives too. Our behaviors in our everyday lives inspire self-trust, and as a result, we learn to love ourselves a little more. In short, you must be the best version of yourself that you can be. It matters. People feel it. And when other people can't feel it, there will be economic consequences. You 2.0. Finding happiness and success require a process. Here are 10 areas built on the Stoic principles that can help you develop to ensure that you're always improving. Your purpose. Your purpose is in front of you. This means make the most of the present, today. Life is short. The past is no longer within our control. The future is not guaranteed, so we must make the most of it now. Ask yourself, how can I make the most out of my time and my circumstances? Your value. We exist for the sake of one another. We all have unique gifts and talents. Use them to create value for others that need you. Ask yourself, what am I good at? Who can I help with my skills, my knowledge, or my talents? What do people need? What do they want? Your passion. The car business is not for everyone. If you don't love it, what are the chances that you're going to enjoy staying in it or even excelling at it? If it's not your calling or if other passions are calling you away, you must make some adjustments to suit those passions. So ask yourself, what efforts am I making in the areas that make me happy? Your urgency. Once we begin doing what we love, we become obsessed. Not good at your passion yet? So what? Do it anyway. Every opportunity. Create easy goals and keep after them a little bit at a time. Ask yourself, what can I do today to get closer to the ideal life? Your strength. Don't just quit. Eventually, you will have success. Sometimes we hit roadblocks and that's okay. You just show up every day and do what you can. Ask yourself, what would happen if I tried to accomplish at least one of my goals every single day? Your fear. You get what you focus on. Worrying about negative things creates negative focus. Most of life is out of our control anyway, so we must focus on the things that we can control. So ask yourself, is this the best place to focus my thoughts or my energy? Or could I focus them in more positive areas? Your heroes. Finding someone that has already walked the path to their potential or overcame their weaknesses is helpful for motivating us to do the same. So ask yourself, who do I admire and respect, and why? Your circle. Everyone's opinions vary, but none walk in your shoes. Their experiences in life differ from yours, and while they may mean well, it can still be a disruption towards achieving your goals. Ask yourself, where's this negativity coming from, and what are they trying to achieve? Your challenges. Whatever is holding you back from living the life you seek is the way. Go address it, head on, get to the other side of whatever's holding you back. Ask yourself, how could my life improve if I could remedy this one problem? Your perseverance. Life goes on. As you achieve goals, new desires and obstacles will await you. The process of working through problems is never ending, but your ability to solve problems will continue to improve as long as you live. Ask yourself, do I need a new purpose? And what around me is good reason for my time and efforts? S.O.S. Same old story. People always do one of the following three things. 1. They pick packages. We know what to do when they pick a package, right? We print. 2. They ask questions. Do we know how to answer all their questions? I hope so. This is an opportunity to gain trust. Questions are opportunities. We need to embrace them. 3. They object. What if they object? Often, their objection is not based on good data. For instance, a customer that says no before they even see the cost or the coverage of the product or package that you're offering isn't saying no to the product. They're saying no to you. If they don't trust us, the dealership, or the product, it's going to be a challenge. If they've had a negative past car buying experience, or maybe their friends or family have told them horror stories about a dealership, this can make the transaction more difficult for sure, but it is not necessarily a problem. It is an opportunity to create trust. So let's drill down into the behaviors of creating trust. If I do not trust you or I think you're trying to take advantage of me, I'm not going to buy anything from you. If I do not trust you, I will feed you irrational responses every time you try and close me. If I do not trust you, you may wear me down long enough to get my signature so I can go home, but I will cancel as soon as I have an opportunity. As a finance manager, if we want to achieve above average results, we must learn to communicate and we must learn to operate with the spirit of win-win. People can feel the difference when you're only there for yourself. First, Do you frame lack of trust as a threat or as an opportunity? Now, if you're trying to take advantage of someone, then lack of trust is a deal killer. But if your intent is about helping them, then you can fearlessly go anywhere in the conversation. What your customer is looking for is twofold. They are looking for you to show them your character and your competency. They want to know that you're trying to treat them fairly and that you know how to create a positive experience for them. We must show them our character and our competency if we hope to communicate with them. If we fail, then they will dismiss us and our products. We show our character by being genuine, by discussing products based on their agenda. This is about helping people solve problems. We also show our competency by having a deep understanding of exactly how our products work and how they will solve problems for our customers. When working with our customers, we must be in the room, not just in our heads. We begin by listening deeply, without a time or profit agenda. We listen, we watch. We learn how to behave in a helping and caring manner. We remember that we are here to serve. We are here to create a positive experience. That is our job. And it's also the most profitable process. Test it. Imagine that you're talking with a doctor or a lawyer. How important is clear communication? How important is it that they care about your results? If they treat you like just another transaction, how would that make you feel? See, it's super important that we understand our intent or what we hope to create during the short relationship with them. So, what is your intent? To make a profit, of course, that is being responsible for good business, but you must compartmentalize that desire here. You must put the customer first. And if that means a 15-minute transaction with no products, then let's get to it. Let's get on to the next customer while they're still excited. I mean, why don't we push here? One reason. There's no trust yet. Imagine that you don't know me, and I decide that you need to listen to my political opinions. And if you disagree, I'm just going to keep pushing. How well is this going to work out for me? The same thing with your opinion about F&I products. If they believe in not getting ripped off and you haven't demonstrated that your intentions are about helping them yet, then they will not listen. They will tune you out. They will argue. They will push the menu back. Or maybe they'll just ask, "Can I buy it later?" Our only hope is to make sure that our intent is focused on them from the beginning. We must genuinely want the transaction to be easy and helpful. We must genuinely want them to leave feeling good about our time together. Anything else is going to be a battle. A culture of excellence. Ever stay at the Four Seasons? The staff practices making the experience exceptional for their guest. They slow down. They authentically make eye contact. They attempt to help, solve problems, or just listen. Yes, it costs more to stay there compared with other hotels, but the experience is incredibly different than those hotels. They focus on creating a positive experience, while we focus on maximizing profits in the shortest time possible. I don't think I need to tell you that there's a profound difference here. Now imagine yourself slowing down and demonstrating that same professionalism and authentic care towards the customer, perhaps even making their interaction with you the best part of their day. Why does this matter? People begin making decisions about your trustworthiness the moment that they meet you, and I promise, if you don't believe that you're there to help them, it's going to be hard to inspire the customer to believe you. Test it. Imagine yourself meeting with a fitness coach. Now, the coach is completely out of shape. He seems unsure about how you're going to achieve the results you seek. Do you move forward with him? Do you hire him? No? Why not? Imagine the same thing in the box. You're buying a car and you feel like something is off. The F&I manager doesn't look organized. Or you notice the lack of professionalism and begin feeling some uncertainty. You want to buy the VSC and begin to ask questions about the coverage, but the answers are all vague. His answers are preceded or followed by words like, I think, or should be fine, or other non-committal phrases. Maybe instead he sounds scripted or canned, the information overload attempt, filled with vague statements and irrelevant information. It's obviously unauthentic, as if the F&I manager would say anything to sell you. Do you move forward? As previously discussed, there's a dynamic in play here that is incredibly important. You, me, anybody in any transaction ever is working with two different sets of data, thoughts and feelings. They compete with each other, but ultimately feelings will win. Feelings, not thoughts, buy the car, or the service contract, or the gap coverage, or the chemical package, or for that matter, anything. The feeling self wants what it wants, and the thinking self justifies what the feeling self already decided on. If I ask you for directions or instructions, my head or my thinking self will be involved. But if I ask you to listen while I play my favorite song, your gut or your feeling self will be engaged, and you'll begin making judgments and trust assessments about me.
I can't think the music, but I can feel it. Featherfoot. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Viktor Frankl.
Chapter 5. Final Thoughts. In order to help people help themselves, you'll need to communicate effectively. But engaging people with new and sometimes uncomfortable information requires tact. It requires you to have the ability to say hard things in a very soft way. You can do this by focusing your intent on helping them. If the product that you're proposing is a good idea, gently discuss the reasons why they will benefit from having it, and then the problems that it will solve. Here's two examples of the same conversation. Notice that the key words have been changed. Most customers want to have a great experience. I suspect that you do too. Now, when I say great experience, I mean an ownership period that's free of problems and inconveniences. We all would like to own a car that doesn't break down, that doesn't depreciate rapidly, and doesn't become uncomfortably expensive. Or, most customers want to have a great experience. I suspect that you do too. When I say great experience, I mean an ownership period that is carefree and easy. We all like to own a car that is reliable, that holds value, that is financially responsible and looks great. Can you feel any difference between the two? Notice that we're not talking about products. It's not of any value to talk about a product because it doesn't solve a problem yet. Also, we don't want to begin by talking about problems. We want to spend time talking about benefits first. When we only talk about problems, people tend to follow prospect theory. They develop a cavalier attitude towards risk. Instead, when we talk about benefits, people are likely to feel warm and fuzzy. They consider what it would be like to adopt a product or service that's going to allow them to continue having that positive feeling. By blending both the benefits and the problems together and doing it in a way that we genuinely seem to be concerned about our customers' experience, we are likely to improve our own experience simultaneously. Another reason that we're not actually talking about the product itself yet is because we don't know if it's of any value to the customer yet. Test it. Imagine that you're trying to sell me a lawnmower. Now, you tell me that this is the greatest lawnmower ever. It mows at different heights, it trims, it edges, it has a bag to take care of all the trimmings. It's quite frankly the best lawnmower in the universe. Unfortunately for you, I live on the 18th floor of a condo downtown. Is your lawnmower really a solution for me? Is your extended warranty really a solution when I think the Honda I'm buying is the best car ever? Is your gap insurance a solution for me when I think that my insurance with State Farm is going to take care of everything? Are your chemicals a solution for me when I think that they're just snake oil? The list goes on, but one thing's clear. If I don't believe that I need it, you're not going to sell it to me. You see, all people are either moving away from pain or towards gain. So if we can engage our customers in a conversation about how they would like this experience to go, they're going to share some pretty interesting things with us. To begin with, if they're talking about prestige, enjoyment, comfort, or economy, then they're talking about benefits. However, if they're talking about all the bad things that went wrong with their last car, like the lack of economy or mechanical problems, depreciation, or anything else, then they're talking about the discomfort associated with the car. They're moving away from pain. By understanding which direction they're going in, you can also understand how to most effectively talk with them about providing solutions that work during your presentation. Objections. By now, I think it's fair to say that I'm not going to give you some word tracks to overcome your customers' objections. But, in fairness, if I didn't unpack the structure of objections themselves, I think this book would be incomplete. Aside from a few outliers, there are only 3 main reasons why people object to your products or presentations. 1. No trust. 2. Budget. Or 3. Quality. This is the reality of the challenges that we see, but they present themselves in a variety of different ways. Someone that doesn't extend trust to you might make up a story as a psychological self-defense, also known as a lie. Other concerns like budget and quality are in many ways not factual. They're opinions based on beliefs that can be explored and challenged if you demonstrate that you actually care and you have some knowledge of what your products do. Again, a 100% way to close every customer does not exist. You're not going to persuade everyone you meet, but if you can keep your mind from wandering off to your PVR, your penetration, or your quota, you'll always be closer to the sale. Just focus on your customers and their overall experience. Not just the sale, but the ownership experience. If you do that, your profit will occur organically, naturally, and effortlessly. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this book, and I encourage you to reach out with your questions, thoughts, and experiences. This material was written specifically for you, with the intent of helping you find more success in the box, but also in life. Be well, Lloyd. Dedication. I would like to dedicate this book to Jennifer, who stood by my side while I learned the material. It was a difficult journey from great news, the bank included an approval for your extended warranty, now sign here and press hard, to actually having real, authentic conversations with people about helping them towards what I now refer to as the best ownership experience. Her character and ethics have humbled me over the years and helped guide me down the right path. Through her, I've learned that being focused on doing the right thing as opposed to trying to protect my ego leads to more profitable transactions and a more emotionally satisfying life. In short, she is my guiding light, and she is my best friend. Thanks, Jen. I would also like to thank Michael Rainey. Without him, this audiobook would not be possible. Thanks.